This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by Peninsula Regional Medical Center.
He's a former professional running back. He was named one of the all-time best running backs in football history. Jerome Bettis is a husband, a father, and a retired pro player. He's also one of 6 million Americans who's at risk of a life-threatening condition known as anaphylaxis. And he's made it one of his missions to educate people about the disorder, and he joins us today. Jerome Bettis, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's wonderful to talk to you. So let me make sure that I get this right. I understand you are severely allergic to shellfish, which actually is very common around Delmarva as well. And can you give us some ideas? Tell us more about this anaphylactic reaction.
Yeah, anaphylaxis, it's a severe situation in some cases, and in my case, it is severe, and it's life-threatening. A lot of people don't realize that you can die from allergic reaction. So that's why I want to bring awareness, and I partnered up with Sanofi to do that, in fact, and Sanofi also sponsored a survey, and you know, it's Labor Day and people are going to be traveling, and Sanofi sponsored a survey that it was really enlightening for me, and I want to share some of that with you. In that most of the people that they surveyed that were traveling say that they've had a severe allergic reaction, and unfortunately about half of those people say that they forgot to bring their medicine, their epinephrine auto-injector. So imagine that you're traveling, this is a life-threatening situation, and you don't bring your medicine. And so, you know, I've got 3 keys that I've kind of developed for the people that are traveling, and they are sufferers from anaphylaxis, is that one is to try to avoid that allergen altogether. I'm allergic to shellfish, so I'm very conscious of what's going into my mouth, or what I'm eating at all times. The second thing is make sure you have your device with you. I've got my device with me. I carry it at all times. It's called Auvi-Q, and it's an epinephrine auto-injector that talks you through the process. So you hear that? It actually talks you through the injection process so that you feel more comfortable, you're confident in doing it. And so the third thing I would say, make sure you have the emergency information that you need to have. If you're traveling abroad, make sure you have the information to the emergency assistance in that country. It may be different than here in the United States. So you want to make sure that you have all the emergency information that you need, so that if this happens to you, that you can get that emergency care that you need, but you can also take your epinephrine auto-injector.
Okay, Jerome, you know what yours is. What if we don't know if we have an allergy that could result in this terrible situation? Are there some symptoms that you can share with us that we need to look for?
Yeah, there's some symptoms. You know, you've got skin irritation, you've got throat irritations, you've got severe coughing, you got swelling, you got a lot of different things that you can see that you need to get emergency attention. If you feel uncomfortable, if it doesn't feel right, then you need to be very, very careful, because you know this is something that really goes undiagnosed quite a bit, and we need to be conscious of it and pay attention to it, because it is life-threatening after all.
Is it always something that we eat? Do you have to ingest it?
No, you don't have to ingest it. It could be bee stings. You can be allergic to latex. It could be a lot of different things that can cause a severe allergic reaction. It doesn't necessarily have to be, food. It could be those different things. You know, obviously, nuts and shellfish and some of those things. But there's other areas where you could have big problems. So you got to be very, very conscious.
Okay, so Jerome, you're a dad. How do you protect the kids?
Well, the key is to make sure you have their device available to them at all times. And so, you make sure that you give this device to the caregiver at the school. You make sure that you tell, the teacher, you tell the principal. Make sure that you tell the people in the kitchen. You alert everyone that you possibly can to your children's severe allergic reaction, whatever it causes, that you want to make sure they know that. So you've got to be diligent in your approach, and you also have to educate the people as well, as that it is a life-threatening situation. And if there is a situation where something has gotten into the child, or they've been bitten, or they've eaten something, that they administer emergency help. You get emergency help, but administer the epinephrine immediately, because it can be life-threatening.
Great information. Jerome, you just released a book. Tell me about that.
Well, it was a little while ago, but just talking about my career and my life, and so it really kind of talks about how everything got started, growing up as a kid in Detroit, all the way until me winning the Super Bowl. That was obviously, it all came back together because I won in my hometown of Detroit. So it just kind of brought my whole life back into perspective.
All right, Jerome Bettis, father and author of the Severe Allergy and Anaphylaxis Playbook. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. But before I let you go, I got to ask you, what are your thoughts about the upcoming season? You think your former teammates going to do well this year?
You know what? I think they'll be good. I don't think they'll be great. I think that they're developing. They got some really good football players, but they're a really young football team when you look at the core of the football team. But they're developing. I think maybe not this year, but I think maybe next year they'll have a chance to win a championship.
Have you got any favorites for this year?
This year, my favorites would have to be the 49ers and the Denver Broncos. I think both teams have a bitter taste in their mouth from last year. They both lost to the Ravens, so they want to make sure that it's a different outcome this year.
Jerome Bettis, thank you for that. We're going to be looking for that game later on the season. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Now, if you'd like more information on anaphylaxis, you can visit our website, delmarvalife.com, and click on the Show tab.
And Jimmy, as schools across the country open, parents of children with a potentially life-threatening allergy are preparing their kids and those responsible for their care to be aware of the real risk of anaphylaxis. Dr. Kurt Watkins is a board-certified allergy immunology specialist on the staff at PRMC and Peninsula Allergy and Asthma Associates, and he joins us this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about food allergies.
Yeah.
It's a subject that often comes up, and I'd love the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's just start off with the basics. What is anaphylaxis?
Anaphylaxis is, put shortly, a severe allergic reaction. Imagine getting bit by a mosquito 10 times, all right, a lot of itching. Imagine 100,000 times. Anaphylaxis can be that severe.
Wow, and so what are some of the common allergic triggers?
Foods are going to be the most common, but we also see anaphylaxis to medications, blood products, insect stings, Mr. Bennis asked about. The most common foods are peanut by far, tree nuts, milk, egg, shellfish, and fish.
Now, when you talk about tree nuts, you mean like almonds and...
Almonds, cashews, Brazil nuts, yes.
Okay. Now, Jerome mentioned that this goes undiagnosed a lot of times. Why do you think that is?
I don't think it goes unrecognized, but it goes undiagnosed. People don't necessarily see their doctor about this, and I think that's a mistake. You want to know what it is you're reacting to, and more importantly, you want to get the epinephrine injector, the self-epinephrine injector he was talking about, because that's life-saving.
Right, right. Now, let's talk about what parents need to know, and Jerome kind of touched on this a little bit. Our kids are heading back to school. We really need to educate everybody who is around our children. So what do we need to remember when it comes to them going back to school?
Well, three things really. First, don't eat the food, so you need to notify the staff and the school, and there's paperwork they'll have you fill out. Number two, you need to have the self-injectable epinephrine injector, and that's really indispensable, and that requires more paperwork. Lastly, you have to have the injector with you. So not only does you have to have it prescribed, but you need to carry it. And we forget, and time passes, and I guess we get lazy. And but many cases of deaths have been because that injector was not readily available.
And as a parent, you had suggested maybe just going to the school and just talking to people.
I think it's worth a trip in at the beginning of the year to talk to the homeroom teacher and maybe talk to the lunch staff to make sure that they're aware of your child's situation, that they understand the seriousness of the situation, and also that they're prepared to use the injector.
And if your child does not have allergies, other parents really need to take this seriously, don't they? They need to be looking out for the other children.
They do. Awareness is pretty good, better than it was 15 years ago when I started practice. I think most people understand the seriousness of this, but it certainly doesn't hurt to drill it home and hand them the injector and walk through it once. It just takes a minute to go through with caretakers if you're going to a birthday party.
All right, so we reached out to viewers on Facebook to see if they had any questions to ask you. And here's some of the questions. We have one from Tracy saying, can a child develop a new allergy unexpectedly?
Absolutely. We're not born with food allergies. They're acquired. So at some point the food allergy is going to show up. Sometimes that's in infancy, but many times as well into childhood or even adulthood.
Right. And then our next viewer asked, Terry says, I developed my allergy to dairy as an adult. How common is it for adults to develop food allergies?
That's very common. I see plenty of adults come in with food allergies well into adulthood. Milk's a little unusual. I want to ask her a few questions to make sure that wasn't lactose intolerance, which is different, but adult onset food allergy is common.
And finally, Emily wants to know if you can go over some of the myths, like giving a liquid antihistamine prior to eating the food you're allergic to. Have you heard that one?
I have heard that one. Doc, can I eat shrimp if I take Benadryl ahead of time? That's not a good idea. Definitely discourage. Rule number 1, don't eat the food. Rule number 2, have your epinephrine ready to go, because accidents do happen. It's more common than not for accidents to occur after diagnosis, so you got to have that injector, and Benadryl is not a substitute for the epinephrine. The epinephrine first and foremost, and I can't say that enough.
All right, extremely important information for all parents and caregivers. Thank you so much, Dr. Watkins, for joining us. And if you would like to learn more about what we talked about today, go to delmarvalife.com, click on the show tab. Still ahead on Delmarva Life, it's called the Queen of Greens. We'll introduce you to what's also being hailed the new superfood. We'll also show you how to incorporate the sturdy superfood into your diet. But first, one man's love for paintball has inspired him to reach out to those who've fought on a real battlefield. How you can join his fight to help the Wounded Warriors Project. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.